Historians have a habit of naming eras and epochs for commonly shared features. The Mesozoic era, the Jurassic period, the Dark Ages, medieval times, and yes, even Victorian times. Future historians will look back and say, truly, these were Russian times. The year was 2033 and we were on our 8th Trump presidency. Having grown bored of his second term, he seized supreme executive power and abolished the term limit on the office. Although, to keep things interesting, he felt it best to reduce the length of the term to a single year. After his 5th term, he grew tired of wielding unquestioned dictatorial power and retired. However, in 2029, the country was in turmoil. Having removed the line of succession laws and replacing them with the snap election procedures that left the country in a state of disarray when 9 presidents in a row committed suicide while watching The View, only 1 month into their terms. And in that year, when political polarization was at its highest, our country was surely in the worst position it had ever been. Tribalistic thinking and an inability to compromise left the country with only 3 candidates. A horse named Winifred, the tyrannical Mecca McCain, and the shambling corpse of Bill Cosby. Donald Trump won by unanimous vote, as a write-in. Accepting the responsibility he could not escape as president for life, he simply continued running in following years. But all was not well. In 2031, Russia, North Korea, now called West Korea, and China all converted to nihilism and immediately began a thermonuclear war that would destroy the world's graphical processing unit and driving the survivors underground for fear of unstable frame rates and screen tearing. A coalition was formed to improve performance and hardware optimization, but it was already too late. The frame drops began ravaging the world, slaying and feasting on any who dared to walk the surface too long. Humanity had but one choice: adapt or die. We chose to thrive, but doing so meant we had to change, so we emulated the most resilient peoples in Earth's history, Cro-Magnon Russians. Time passed as it is wont to do. Things improved, we grew closer as a species, and I even got to hang out with hookers and shit, and in 2033 I would take my first trip to the surface, in over a decade. It was a Monday, or maybe a Thursday, I don't quite recall. My friend Jebediah was hankering for some flame-grilled beef and suggested we head out to the Burger King. Said he was thinking about trying that new rodeo burger. I tried to tell him it wasn't new, that it was the same damn burger they release every other year, and that it was the same one he had back then. But he shrugged me off saying,
"Yea, but it is a Whopper patty this time."
I couldn't argue with him, not because he had a point, but because the Amish are stubborn, stuck in their ways. Choosing a simpler life of older technology, they embraced console peasantry, believing that it brought themselves closer to God. But what loving God would create something so diarrhea-inducing as the rodeo burger? Unable to argue with the Amish and craving those awesome fries, my Amish friend and I gathered up our gear and set out to find the Burger King. But things did not go so smoothly as we had hoped. Firstly, we were short on filters. You see, we had to wear gas masks on the surface, as breathing in the unstable frame rate would cause you to vomit uncontrollably, forcing you to play your games at 900p 25 FPS for the rest of your life. We called it Xbox syndrome. Like I said, low on filters, we were already having to scavenge for them. But no sooner had we broken the surface when the mutated Alex Jones swooped in, hunting for humans. You see, in 2025, Alex Jones, the once world-renowned American hero, sacrificed his life for us. To prove that the government was putting chemicals in the water that turned the frogs gay, he chose to drink it himself. Almost immediately, his body changed to that of a horrendous, misshapen, gay frog. Now he prowls the surface, seeking body glitter, sick bass, and humans to bring back to his club to dance the night away. A true American hero, brought so low. But we were smarter than the body-glittered beast. Sticking to shadows, we made our way through the crumbling necropolis that used to be Detroit. Honestly, it didn't really look that different from before, but hey, nostalgia and shit. Eventually, Jeb and I got separated. He got distracted by an old wagon wheel and wandered off, so I had to catch up to him. I made my way through the dilapidated apartment, hearing the distant call of the prowling Alex echoing throughout the halls.
"Marriage is between a man and his testosterone pills,"
He howled. To think of marriage in a rundown apartment like this, it reminded me of times before the thermonuclear destruction of our world. of a time when my friends Grace and Trip invited me over for dinner. And oddly enough, just me. Not the Scottish woman I had held captive for 3 years and told everyone was my wife. Just me. I thought it was odd, but Trip was a known sociopath and I didn't want to turn him down. Almost immediately, he began plying me with alcohol. I was afraid this was no social call between old friends, that it indeed might be a sex thing. I tried to keep it light, turned down his offer for drinks, and played it cool. It wasn't long before he started jabbering about his low-res photography, and Grace flew off the handle. She tried to play it cool, but it was obvious she was just jonesing to start some shit. I tried to quell the oncoming domestic dispute by drawing attention to Grace's weird rainbow penis sculpture, but that just made things worse. Both of them, failures in their chosen artistic fields, sponged off of each other's emotions, creating a maelstrom of dissatisfaction in their marriage. What had started off as a weird threesome thing turned into a full-on divorce hearing. What had been slightly uncomfortable had now become awkward as fuck. I tried my best to distract them and slink away, but in the end, only by causing them to band together in their hatred of me was their marriage saved. Pretty fucked up, right? Anyway, where was I? So I made my way through the apartments, remembering shitty dinner dates, and eventually met back up with Jebediah. We weren't careful enough and Alex Jones caught up to us. We had to think fast to get out of the low FPS zone, but we pulled it off. Jeb was now more determined than ever. I could see it in his eyes. Those Amish eyes, knowing only a deep, unfathomable conviction to sink his teeth into that mediocre burger. But these were Russian times, and that meant all the signs were in Russian. But I, an American, and Jeb, a dirty Dutch Amish, couldn't read Russian. We never did make it to the Burger King. We found ourselves sitting at a Carl's Jr. I was pretty fucking hungry and stopped caring during the Trip and Grace flashback, but Jeb, he wanted that goddamn rodeo burger something fierce. But he and I were defeated. We ate there at that Carl's Jr. I told Jebediah we could always just try tomorrow. After all, we would get hungry again at some point. But he was broken. Jeb was never the same after that point. Me? I didn't care. There were hookers waiting for me and shit, and Amish people suck anyway. It's a cruel, chaotic universe breathed by a nihilistic god that we live in. If anything so questionable as morals exist, then surely they can be applied to stories. And this story's moral is, I totally paid money for this.